Hello and welcome to episode 64 of the world's first Paul Weller fan podcast. I'm Dan Jennings, and 10 years ago I gave up my live streaming career as a radio presenter with one big regret: never getting to interview my hero, the legendary British musician Paul Weller. This podcast exists purely to solve that issue. Welcome to Desperately Seeking Paul. So here's a pretty cool thing. Last Thursday night at the Roundhouse, I was there front row, Villagers, the UK tour. The latest album is fabulous, by the way. And who rocks up? Yes, Mr. Weller as a guest playing on stage. They did the Soul Searchers together from the album True Meanings. It was fabulous. And then a proper guitar rock out at one point as well. You can check out the video on my YouTube channel. Now, in this episode, I'm joined by the world-class musician, praise singer, pioneer, composer, drummer, and Kora master, Seckou Keita. Since arriving in the UK from Senegal in the late 90s, he has made a name for himself as one of the foremost innovators operating in African music today, regularly smashing out 5-star album reviews and multiple awards, including the BBC Radio 2 Folk Award for Musician of the Year in 2019. He's one of the most influential and inspiring kora players of his generation, a true master of this fascinating instrument, and more about that in our chat. Seckou played with Paul as part of the Africa Express Presents concert in 2016, and last year he remixed Rockets from On Sunset for a new EP from Paul. So let's get into it. Hey Seckou, thanks for joining me.
No worries. Thank you, Dan.
We're going to talk about your links with Mr. Weller. We're going to talk about your work and your amazing achievements in that area too. But as we kick it off with the Paul Weller Fan Podcast, tell me when it was that you first discovered the music of Paul Weller, because I know that you came to the UK in the late 90s. You were 21 years old. Was Paul Weller a thing back home?
Well, it's a really interesting question. I mean, Paul Weller, yes, no, he was around me musically without me notice, I have to be honest, because my ex-partner, my friends around the UK when I arrived in the late 90s, 98, this music was something that they would talk about and they listen to. And I didn't make that relationship personally quickly. They don't notice. I was like, okay, this guy exists, this is music. So it's like, to me, a popular and well-known music around the UK that people will listen to. You hear the radio, you hear some people listening to it. So I wasn't really focused on who's Paul Weller was at the time. So he's been around, but I didn't click it. Till very late in the tour that been organized by Africa Express by Damon Alban with some figure artists. So I was one of the feature artists part of that tour. And it happened that Paul Weller was there, part of that bill, So we did this amazing tour with the Syrian Orchestra that haven't got the chance to play for almost 5 years because of what's going on in Syria. So that was the whole thing. And I met Paul. First time was in Holland.
So this was concerts, 12 days, 5 concerts. Yeah. And was Paul there for everyone, or was he just there for the Royal Festival Hall? Or
he was in few of them. He was for the Royal Festival Hall. He was for the Holland one. He was in some places, but not for all of it, to be honest. Because the Holland one, I saw him, and I didn't know. Overnight they asked me, "Do you mind joining this song called Wildwood?" And then I said, "Oh, okay." How'd that go?
And that was Paul's attempt. Wildwood was Paul's attempt at writing a classic folk song. And the fact that he wrote it like nearly 30 years ago now.
That's amazing. Amazing. And I heard it's really casual. I said, "Oh, this is beautiful. This is like, wow." So to me, it was kind of new. I feel like it had been written about, same year, not 30 years ago. And I heard it and I said, okay, listen to the night before I went to bed. Because they asked me to look for it, and then I went to listen. One of the organizers that work with them, and then I wake up, and then on stage, then I have no clue. I played, Paul there, and do my part. The usual Seckou Keita approach into the folk music and the style of it. I happened to take a snap picture, like what artists do when you have to do your social media. Sometime took a picture, both of us there, and then put it off, and then I have all these relative and close friends that I said, "Oh my God, he and Paul Weller." Who? Paul Weller, who?
I love that. And that probably helps you to not be phased, doesn't it? So, if you were starstruck, that's not what you want. But you do this thing. There's the Royal Festival Hall is the whole concert is available on YouTube, which people should dig into. It's brilliant. And then you're right, it's Africa Express, which was a project like Damon Alban from Gorillaz and Blur led project. Yep. There's some great people involved, but you do this incredible version of Wildwood, and we'll talk about your instrument in a second. But the joy on your face, my friend, you are loving every second of that concert.
It was really like, it was an amazing collaboration, I would like to say, playing with those great musicians that have been there and did a lot of good stuff, and also really ready to share. I think that's the main thing, because I'm just sharing, because I feel like the way I will voice my music is to share. And sharing, Wildwood, what Paul just looking at me in the corner with the thumbs going up all the time, like, nice one. Yes, very good. Cool, then we keep going. So I was jolly smiling, happy, and there was, of course, Seckou, that is Malian Goni player, also joining all the numbers. So Wildwood was one that I've sit down, really, I love that song. And then Paul's voice, in his way, is right. It's just like, wow. And I become a new kind of follower, a friend, also fan. And then it went so natural, and Paul was so natural about it. And we had a chat and change phone numbers and talk about the future, and it was a beautiful setup. The Holland one was the first one we did in Holland, the festival, the first show. And then the second one was in the Royal Festival Hall. Of course, it's all available out there. It was a beautiful night.
Yeah.
Beautiful
well,
night.
I have to say, if people haven't seen it, they should watch it. The album's available as well, the recording of the concert. You have to tell me about the Kora, because, I guess there's two things, right? So music for you is properly in the blood. I mean, it's been the family business for at least 3 centuries, I understand.
Indeed. Sadly, yes.
It's like an addiction that runs through the family, isn't it?
Exactly. Can't avoid it. So it was there, born around it. Basically, in my story, my father's side in the 13th century, they were recognized as the king family, the royal family. But my mother's side are the griot, the music family where the Kora is around. So it was part of my blood. I was born in the family, grew up, getting trained how to build my own instrument, which is the Kora, spelled Kora, and play with 2 thumbs and 2 fingers, kind of like a harp. It's one of those Senegalese national instruments that well known, even in our, singing anthem is Kora. And if I pense tu vo Kora, tune all your Kora, and then of course the song carry on. So the Kora is a main heart in the Senegalese art, Senegalese music, Senegalese culture.
It's a big old instrument to carry around, though, isn't it?
It is. Well, it have been, and then people are more creative to make it like traveling ones. But I always fight against having like a little box of electric, almost like guitar, and then have a real touchy guitar. So that's the difference. I have to be somewhere like, because the calabash sound, the big of the gourd is important. That's where the resonant acoustic sound comes nicely. So people now created even like the bass guitar looking body ones just to be able to travel in flight. But I always have my flight cases that I basically pull along. I'm not tired. They keep me strong.
It's a lovely, lovely sound. And but yours is unique in terms of the number of strings. Is that right?
The one I play has got 22 strings. And then, of course, the famous one that people play around is 21 strings. And there's a story behind that as well. What my grandfather told me, what I've grown with, like the 22 string was the original one played. But because of the first ever human being that played the Kora, which was called Jalimadi Wuleng. Jalimadi Wuleng means Madi, the red griot, when he passed away. So he's a fellow artist, griot musician, took 1 strings as a memorial to him. So since then, Kora became 21 strings. What the legend story about it. So this is why, but where I come from, which is a southern part of Senegal, and also part of the Gambia, we play up to 22 strings still. So that's what I'm trying to play. It's an extra bass note in the middle, which kind of add into the groove, really.
Well, I've talked on the podcast with people talking about how it's hard enough learning the bass guitar, which has 4 strings, the normal guitar, 6 strings. It feels like the Kora feels to me, like as an outsider, it's like becoming a Jedi. So like in Star Wars, right? So it's like you're a Jedi apprentice and this thing is the lightsaber and you have to learn how to use this. And then eventually you become a fully trained Jedi, which is where you are right now.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. Good to hear that way. I've never been described that way. Yeah, I'll take that as a credit.
Yeah, but it seems like that because it's a proper like mission that you have to go on to
True.
To kind of and I know you are to kind of keep the instrument alive as well. That's a really key part for you, isn't it?
It's part of it because it's I think for old tradition, I believe it's like tradition is the everyday living. So you revolve as you go, you extend, but you have to prevent also keep what the originality of it. So the Kora was something like that. 22 strings that I have to go through with 2 thumbs, 2 fingers. So left thumb play the bass line, the right thumb play the melody at the same time. So you get this 2 thumb going, and then the 2 fingers improvise at the same time. So on top of that, you try and sing. So it's like 5 elements. And this is, you have to get a really rigorous. My grandfather was a rigorous trainer. So I have from early age really hardly trained to how to get that going. So it gets to a point that when I start traveling, I have to open my own door to the Kora, be more creative and, create my own tuning style and to be able to play with all the music around the world. So yeah, that was certainly the mission. And the younger people also coming, we are using sometimes pedals, if you want, like, I'm not crazy into pedal, like wah pedal or stuff like that. But to a certain extent, beautiful pedal sounds that really add the beauty into the Kora. I do use them sometimes.
Okay. Well, and we should say that the Kora has featured with Paul Weller. So I have this here, which is On Sunset, the remixes. And we chatted with Asuba Ahmad, who had done the remix for On Sunset. But you're there, side A, track 3, Rockets, and you've done the remix. So how did that come about?
That was basically, it was, again, Paul. We've been in touch trying to find a way to do something together. And of course, he's a busy man. He got a lot going on, and I've become busy as well. A lot going on. I've never find the right time to do anything. In the lockdown, the only way we could get stuff going is just to start somewhere. Any collaboration, you have to have a beginning of something. So Paul have done is this amazing Sunset, album that really went really out there. And then he's trying to do remix. First, he just, I didn't know it was a remix. Just like send me his voice on Rocket. Like, yeah, go on, trust me, do something with it. So, okay. That's a big trust. All right, I'll work on it.
What do you get all these layered files, like the isolated voice file on an email? Do you? Or?
Yeah. Well, I was at home, so on my home base, basically, studio, on my cellar downstairs, I have my there. So I just have this, Paul Weller on his voice, and with that click, then I got to create something around it. And to be honest, I don't have a clue what Rocket was played in the original one. Which was a good thing, in fact, because then I feel like it's Paula and I need to create something there. And of course, then I start working and then beautifully going. And then, of course, there's a strings attached to that string side of that. We also send separately. And then, of course, I work with my lovely old-time friend and engineer and lovely working guy, Tom Colvin, that based in London. He worked on a lot of my album, my first ever album. He recorded it. So we have this relationship. We understand each other, the language-wise, so it was amazing. Then, working, I was busy doing that. We're doing all the stuff like Lost World, album at the same time, working with some project of my own, which was Now or Never single. I was working with a lot of musicians. So it was really kick on. And then he was really like, oh my God, Safe, you're taking a lot there. What are we going to do with Paul? What are we going to do with this? So he was really helped in order to push it. And then that's why it was fair to credit him as also part of the co-producer of that particular song.
And how does it work? Do you do the track, send it to Paul, get some feedback, do some tweaks? Or is it you do it in one go, he loves it, it's done?
Amazingly, I did it one go. First of all, I didn't want to go. I sent him, I just said, how about this? And then Paul just sort of jump into it, text like, wow, this is different. This is beautiful. This is great. Fantastic. How do you want this to be created? That's it. He was really happy with it as he hear it. And then funny thing was I think it was also for Paul to discover my voice. And then he said, who is singing there, by the way? That's a beautiful voice. I said, oh, because when we do the Africa Express tour, I was playing Kora. There's no way I haven't used my voice at all in any of the numbers that we've been working on because there's so many of us, a bit of space to fill. So the voice was something that I didn't use at all. So I think it was kind of feel like, oh, wow. I said, yeah, it was me then. And he really loved it. So, and I love his sound, his voice. And I have to find a way to come with this higher, voice just to, to get a bit of a meeting point and using less of my lows and stuff like that. But it was fun. It was a really big fun to work with just Paul's voice and then the Kora put in, then my voice, and then the strings come. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. I love the journey of it. It was really emotional to work on that. Then it's afterwards that I realized that, in fact, it's going to be a remix out there. Yeah.
No, it's cool. And to actually see it in like an actual record on vinyl and credits there and all that is brilliant. I mean, I don't know how you found the time to do that because you're so busy. And I know you need to get off to the studio in a sec. So I just wanted to dig into some of the work that you've done with Catherine Finch, particularly, which was it was a harpist from Wales. And this beautiful combination of sound that the two of you make, which is, I mean, you've been hugely successful touring the world. You won Best Duo at the British Folk Awards with Radio 2, and you won Musician of the Year at the same year. That work that you do together is really lovely, and Soar is a brilliant album.
Yeah, it's an amazing project, to be honest. And I always said it's a project that again, another success project that I came into accidentally, without knowing that I was going to be part of it, because it was originally planned for Catherine and Toumani to do a little tour, 5 days around Wales. And then, of course, at the time I was in doing a show for the UN in Rome, in Italy. So I got this phone call from my ex-manager, John, that called me in to come and basically save the day because Toumani was stuck in Mali because of the coup at the time. So then the story goes, and I arrived, Catherine, first time have no clue playing with a Kora player or the African music side of it. So I have to basically prepare the show for them to do it and bring the repertoire, and we'll basically plan with her as, Toumani's part. And of course, with the respect of my tradition, I have to call Toumani first to make sure he's happy with it and on. So anyway, that went ahead. We did the show. I mean, they invited me in 2 shows, which one in Swansea, another one in Cardiff. I joined them as a trio. And of course, from the beginning of the rehearsal and that show, there was a musical click that happened between me and Catherine, that was there. People can see it. We can see it ourselves. So, of course, people that have the project then decided to have an album just between Catherine and I. So it all kicked off from that. First album release, second album was So that I voluntarily took to produce myself, which was a big challenge because the first one did so well.
Yeah.
I feel like what I'm going to do with the second one now, left alone to produce it, and it was an amazing achievement. And that album also came out even highly better than the first one. So it was a beautiful achievement. And I love that project. And, all of this, as I said, for me, it's a journey. Everything have its journey. Catherine Seckou have their journey. Paul Weller was something that I have big respect for that guy, the way he played music and just human. Paul is a very respected, like still now, he doesn't call me my name. He just call me brother. I'll call him big brother. So, it's beautiful, and Catherine, of course, there's always this nice relationship that if you have that with musicians, the music seems to be something that flow easily because you have this element of respect to each other and the friendship, admire each other's talents, which is what's happening for most of my collaboration.
It's a lovely piece of work, I have to say. And you can hear these 2 cultures kind of coming together, but actually like the music of West Africa mixed with her music from Wales. But there's a lot of similarities between the two and a lot of connections between you, obviously.
There is a lot of similarities because, as I always say, sometimes the melodies, Wales melodies and Senegalese music melodies, especially the Kora side of it, that's so we found some similarity that I just stopped for a second. I said, you know what? This sounds like our ancestors sometime, somehow, some point, somewhere in the spiritual have been speaking to each other musically. So we are just the channels, the speakers of it, because there's some nice similarities there. And of course, being an open-minded artist has collaborated a lot, and Catherine has been also open-minded artist. So we find the fees, not to took over, but, to meet somewhere musically, which is a great thing. So sometimes it's hard to get that if you don't find the artists that are willing to collaborate, willing to go halfway, not full way.
Yeah. And how do you find the mixture of collaboration versus your own solo stuff?
Well, I find both of them okay, because the first time we just feel like it's stress, but then when you do one, the second one becomes easier. I think anything in life that you learn. So, of course, in performance with 2 people, less stress than 1 person. 4 is less stress than 2 people, as you see. But then I enjoy playing solo because for me, that's where I can really speak. That's really where I can give my insight, I don't know how I call it, my musical knowledge, but also my possibilities and also my limits. These 2 come out, nicely because I appreciate what I can and what I can't. And I think that's solo thing. There's always a pressure, but then it's more, you need more energy to do a solo show or solo album than having a duo because you feel like, if it's 10 songs, you have to come up with 5, maybe pre-written, and then of course the second person get in and find his own way, to jump on it. That's the difference of like having a solo album. You have to compose the 10 songs. You have to make sure they kind of, diversity is there. The variation of the songs are there, because if you're on your own and have less experience of writing, you might end up playing the same key, the same song, the same style, the same way, and the end of looking at after spending months of composing, then you listen to the song and said, what's that? What did I have? Was I drunk? Was I stoned? What happened? And then they start asking so it's a challenge, but I love working on both of it, because they all have their direction.
Now you're off to the studio now. It never stops. We've already had Homeland, your new single this year, which was another beautiful piece of work, I have to say. Are you off to the studio to work on more of your solo stuff with somebody else? What's the plan for the rest of this year and beyond?
Well, there is a lot going on. As you can see, Homeland was the latest one, which was really hard work and a beautiful, pushing work that I really enjoyed doing because, as to be honest, I've collaborated a lot in the West, but I have less collaboration in Homeland, for example, in Senegal or, beyond in Africa in general. So this year was with the lockdown, I've been a lot of thinking and an important part came to me after the lockdown, what I've been through the pandemic. And I realized two things are important. First is family, and because my life, I do maybe 120 shows a year. So around the globe, really have less time to see my family, and my kids and, stuff like that. So the pandemic kind of forced me to sit down and have time with the family and see them, which is amazing achievement, to be honest. There's negative on the pandemic, but also positive side of it as well.
And you found you got on all right with the family.
Yeah, every family, it took a bit of a time, to get used to be in the, flights of, here to South America or here to wherever, traveling to all over the US or Europe, then suddenly just stuck in the house, see the same every day, same movement.
It's a nice feeling to go, oh, I do like you lot. Oh, good.
Exactly. So you get to the person, oh my God, I was missing all of this now. This is beautiful. So that was important. The second thing was home, where I come from. So that's why, Homeland became a tribute that I composed when I was in Senegal. I spent quite a few months there and reconnect to Baba Mal. In fact, Baba Mal is even supposed to be in the Africa Express tour with Paul Weller, and Baba Mal couldn't make it when we were going to Turkey, because he couldn't make it. And the Diamond was there. Paul couldn't make it, but Baba Mal was supposed to join us, but he couldn't make it. We were talking on the phone. He ended up going to Senegal because the president of Senegal needed him for something else. But anyway, he's an amazing guy, and he's a great collaborator, a beautiful, humble man. And sitting with Baba Mal in our tradition, going to his house, just eating with him, he's ready to share because he will pick his own food like a meat on his side and give it to you. So it's beautiful. That's the sign for sharing, before even going to the studio. So Homeland was a tribute, and it was a good thing to do for me. And now, of course, things carry on. There might be some stuff coming on really, really, really soon in a couple of months' time.
Okay. Yeah. And back out on the road soon as well. I saw there's tour dates with you and Katrina, I think, actually coming up as well, aren't there? Yeah,
there's tour kicking off, Katrina and myself. There's probably autumn tour coming up as well, with Omar Sosa, also solo stuff in between happening. And also, probably some stuff coming with some project with Aka Trio. So it's all hanging there, but they're all going to come out one at a time. I'm taking it easy this time, all right?
Sounds like a plan, my friend. Sounds like a plan. Yeah. Hey, look, this has been so lovely to talk to you. I really appreciate your time because I know you've got to get off as well. I have 2 final questions for you. You're allowed one Paul Weller song for the rest of your life. It can be The Jam, The Style Council. I'm not even sure if The Jam and The Style Council is a thing for you if they ever entered your world, or it can be Paul Weller solo. Which song are you going to pick?
Oh my God. It's going to be Paul Weller solo if I want to be the safe side of it. I love what he does on his own. Of course, I love The Jam, and I heard The Jam, but I think there's something about, again, for me, he's really determined, like I said earlier. I can take it from if you're hearing someone on his own, his possibility, but also his limit. I think for me is important. So I will go for that reason. I will go for Paul Weller solo.
And is there a particular song that stands out for you? Any particular song?
Any of those that will work for me. You pick it, I'll go for it. As long as it's Paul himself there.
Final question. The purpose of this podcast not only is to talk to lovely people like you who have connections with Paul, but it's for me to get the final interview, the interview with Paul that I never managed during my radio career. If that happens, what do you think I should ask him?
Well, one question, ask him how he's managed to keep going, still going strong in his composition and musically. You know, he's been around, he have done it and did it again and still doing it. How? Because I think this is important for any newcomers, people like, people like me and others to learn from that, because it's great. And Paul, also, how is he keeping fit? How he does that too. This is the two questions I will ask.
You're right, because there's two things on that. One is that kind of motivation to keep, that self-motivation to keep going. I want to invent something new. I want to try something new. And after 40 years, I don't know, that's obviously within him, isn't it? Deeply within him. But you're right, there's nothing to him. He looks as fit as he did when he was an 18-year-old. Exactly.
He needs to tell us that secret, right? not only to me, but to the broad Paul Weller fan base. Need to know that.
all of us. Yeah, this has been so lovely. Thank you so much for your time, brother. I've loved every second of this, man.
Thank you, bro. Thank you, Dan. All the best.
What a lovely chap. My thanks once again to Seckou Keita. Since recording that conversation, he has released another new album called Suba. This one recorded with Omar Sosa, one of Cuba's most prolific jazz pianists. You can find plenty of links in the show notes for this podcast, including the full concert with Paul Weller, Damon Alban, and the Orchestra of Syrian musicians. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please follow and leave a review. It really does help us to find new listeners, and please share on your social media channels. You can even buy me a coffee and find all the information about my guests in the show notes. Get in touch on Twitter @WellerFanPod or on Instagram and Facebook. It's Paul Weller Fan Podcast. I'll see you next time.